the microservices works, developer requires to write some code so that one microservice can talk to other microservice internally, which is like calling one microservice by other microservice. So this kind of situation, developer requires to write on some code which causes the downtime in the productivity. To resolve this issue, Microsoft has provided a services which called the Service Fabric. Service Fabric provides a built-in capability to manage the application scaling, agility, and uh, time to market kind of a thing, wherein you as a developer focus on the productivity or the enhancing your business capabilities and managing the application microservice intercommunication and managing the microservices with each other, like hosting, deployment, scaling. All those criteria is managed by the this particular service, which is Service Fabric. So in this case, you have the ability to deploy application as an stateless application, which is a monolithic way, and you also have the next level of application development, which is a stateful application, wherein the Microsoft Service Fabric manages the state of the application by the Service Fabric itself. So there are a number of features such as an partition is one of them, wherein you create the partition of your app services into different application, and the same, like, same application can be, or the same microservice can be partitioned into different application groups, and then you can use the number of instances of the same application, and that way you can increase the productivity basically. Let's look at how do we create a Service Fabric instance on our portal, and we'll describe each and every component or the properties which we require to set up while creating the Service Fabric cluster on Azure portal. To create a Service Fabric, you search on the Service Fabric cluster on your Azure portal. You will have this result set. As you click on create, you would be able to create a Service Fabric from here. The name of the Service Fabric, which I'm going to, let's say, call it Azure Fundamental and 01. And then here you need to provide the name of the location, operating system. So if you want, you can specific target to Linux server, so you have option to choose a Linux if you want to target to the Linux based server or Linux based cluster, or if you want, you can target to a Windows specific server. Nowadays the Service Fabric is extended to the container as well, wherein you can host your application Service Fabric on the containers as well. So you can define the containers. You need to provide the username and password. This is the username and password which is going to be used for management capabilities, managing your Service Fabric cluster. For example, when you deploy a Service Fabric cluster, it creates a basically scale set or the cluster nodes, right? And these cluster nodes are nothing just virtual machines or the skill set machines. So if you want to, let's say, RDP, due to some reason, if you want to troubleshoot an RDP to those machines, then this is the administrator username account and password we are going to use to RDP onto those machines. So that is one of the use case which I'm specifying. Next is the initial VM skill set capacity, so it can go to 50 and beyond that. So by default, if you're deploying application onto the production, it requires at least 5 nodes, and it might possible that you can, if you are on a development or test scenario, let's say for example in this particular demonstration, we can go up to 3 node as well. Once I'm going to choose, you can choose the VM size. Once you specify the number of nodes, you choose the size of VM which you want to specify. So let's say if you are running the Service Fabric or you're creating a Service Fabric on a production environment, so Microsoft recommend to use a DS specific machine, which is the kind of a high performance machine for for running your application services onto the machine. here again on the next side you can change the node type. Here you have the option. I'm a bit surprised why it has got two different options. One is over there and one is here. But anyways, you can go ahead and select a single node as well. Once you select a single node, you get an option that this scenario is not supported in the production. So it is highly assumed that it is you are doing it on your local machine or just for development and testing. Next, when you go to the application basics, it is basically asks you to create specify the certificate, which I missed it in the very first section. So this is kind of a mandatory. So when you create a certificate, first thing you need a key vault, and once you have the key vault, you need to upload or create an SSL certificate, upload the certificate on the key vault, and then whatever certificate we uploaded, you need to specify the link of that particular certificate here in the service fabric. Again, it is asking the same thing. If you specify from there, you can specify the certificate. This is basically the secondary certificate. So if you are, let's say, running changing the certificate, then let's say you have the certificate installed on service fabric, then why the question is why it has asking for the secondary certificate. So it might possible a scenario wherein it might possible that one of the primary certificate is expired. So your certificate is basically hosted on or deployed onto all the cluster nodes. So if your certificate is going to be expired, your node will not be in working condition. So to reduce that particular issue or the downtime, what is recommended is you upload the secondary certificate as well. And once this primary certificate is going to be expired, so you will have option to choose or switch back from primary to secondary, and this way you can reduce the downtime and your application productivity will continue you to be used by the application service fabric. So if you do not specify this secondary certificate and your primary certificate is going to expire, your entire service fabric cluster is going to be down. This is the scenario which we have seen in one of our client, and which was kind of a very bottleneck, though thankfully it was not on production, but it was a use case which we have seen. So do remember that you are using the secondary certificate with the different expiry date basically. Yes, you can specify in the next section you can specify the application insight logs, which is to capture the log of not the application specific but the system diagnostic specific, which is being produced by the application service fabric of itself, service fabric system services by the system services. So you can use this particular application insight. Next is about the DNS and other backup and restore things which you can specify. And then once you have it and just review and create, you should have the service fabric available. Once you have the service fabric available, it will display, you would be having the option to create the or to open the service fabric cluster. One thing I would like to tell you here is about the node type. And then once you have the node type, you can so the enable the reverse proxy. If you want to specify any specific endpoint to be enabled, you can specify, okay, this is my custom endpoint which I want to make it enable. So this is what you can specify here in the service fabric. For example, let's say if you want to specify any specific port 8080, which is for HTTPS, but if you are having any specific service which is running on, let's say, port 8090, 8095, something like that, so it might possible. So depending on the number of services you are running your services on, you want to make sure that those custom endpoints are open here. And once you open the advanced setting, you can have the advanced settings section open, and you can specify the HTTP endpoint, like this is the explorer, and this is the explorer port, and this is the port for deployment of your application. So whenever you are going to deploy the application from the CI/CD pipeline, this is the port number which is required.